right. Welcome everybody. It's good to see everyone here today for this webinar. Well, I can't see you, so hopefully you can see me. If you guys are having any audio or visual problems, do me a favor, go ahead and type that into the chat box. If you can't see anything, we'll see what we can do to get you all set up here before we start. So this is an official welcome to the How I Became a Successful Trader After Blowing Up 2 Accounts. Now, the purpose of this webinar isn't to focus on how I blew up 2 accounts, but it's to focus on what I think is the most difficult transition that traders will face. And that is going from the amateur, hobbyist, stuck in that hole or that rut where you have some success or you've had bursts of success, but you haven't been able to break that mold and cross over into professional status. Now, when I say professional status, what I really mean by that is not $1 million trader running a hedge fund, but being successful just means reaching your goals that you set out for yourself and earning the money that you intended on earning when you entered trading. And for a lot of us, that just means being able to trade and support your lifestyle off your trading. Making that transition from amateur, hobbyist trader into a successful trader, we're going to talk about how that was done and how my experience was. Now, I do see a lot of people from my lincolnlist.com live trade room. So you know my story. Some of you follow me on social media and you've heard me rant and rave quite a few times about my background as a trader and where I came from. But there's also a lot of people in here. This is the first time you are seeing me or the first time that you are meeting me. And you may ask yourself, who are you? What do you know about trading? So to save time, I'm going to try to give everybody just a brief overview of my journey as a trader, where I came from and actually how I got here. As you know from the webinar sign up, it said blowing up 2 accounts. Well, my trading career started in 1999. And of course, back then things were a lot different, but this was really the surge of day trading, when day trading became a possibility for the common man. Now, I say the common man because, internet was just something. Internet actually came out for a lot of people in the mid-90s, but by the later 90s, most people could afford a computer and most people had access to decent internet. So this big boom came in about online trading, and it was finally a viable career where somebody, without being on Wall Street, could actually pursue a career as a day trader. Now, back then I was running a bike store. I owned a store. It was called Sherpa Motorsports in San Diego, California. And I was building bikes and tuning motorcycles and kind of winding down my motorcycle road racing career, for those that are familiar with road racing. I was winding that down, and the problem that I was having is I wasn't making enough money to support the store. Sometimes, like during the holiday seasons and stuff like that, we'd make some okay money, but then it was feast and famine. Well, I had a lot of customers that would come into the store, and they would spend a lot of money. So, after a while, it finally got onto the topic. It was like, hey, what do you guys do for a living? And they said they were day traders. And they had an office that was about 3 or 4 blocks away from my motorcycle store. And I was like, oh, you know what? I've always wanted to get into that. That sounds amazing. And the hours were perfect for it because in Southern California, the market opens at 6:30 a.m. My store didn't open up till 11, so it was awesome. I could sit there and work from 6:30 to 11, which is like 2 p.m. East Coast time, and I could pick up most of the market action, make a little bit of money, and then run my store. So I was like, this is great. I want to do it. So they said, you come by, and we'll train you on what it is that we know, and we'll teach you the system. So anyway, to make a long story shorter, to shorten this, what the system was is we would look in the newspaper every morning. Now, I'm sure if there's any newspaper still out there, I haven't picked up a newspaper in so long. But they used to list the stocks, in the business section. And in the San Diego Union Tribune, they would highlight them in black, all the stocks that had gone up like 5 or 6%, 5 to 10%, 5% or more, I should say. And they would highlight them. So we would pick out a dozen or so, just random, whichever ones we liked. And then we would put those on a watch list. And the rule was, if any one of those hit high of day on the second day, we would buy it. Now, that was the strategy. That was all there was to it. And for about a year to a year and a half, it worked, and it worked great. I started out with about $75,000 in account, turned it into about $180 within a year, And I think I've got this whole thing down. It's doing everything that I ever wanted it to do. It's helping me pay the bills, it's providing me with extra income, and it's helping me have this second career, which I thought I was getting into at the time. Now, if any of you know market history, back then was the most bullish time ever. Now, I know you think right now is bullish, but every day, the biggest difference was there was stocks that were going up $10, $15 every day, kind of like an AAOI. But rather than just having one or two of those stocks, like an AAOI or Netflix after earnings, rather than just having like one or two of those, you had dozens upon dozens to choose from. So you could miss, and you'd still, I got those 15, 20 stocks, but almost every one of them went over high a day. So you had a hard time missing opportunity. And as I said, that worked real good. But again, market history, you know what happened? The techs would crash after that. And as this was happening, I started to lose a lot of money. And I never took the time to educate myself on, or prepare myself for what happens if the market crashes. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to live or make money if the market's going down? I never prepared for that. So my only recourse was to go back to where I could learn something or reach out for people that I thought had experience. And that was the people around me, Wall Street Journal, and CNBC television programs. Now, of course, back then, the consensus was, it's just a pullback. It's just a little baby pullback. Don't worry about it. It's nothing. These are great companies. They got bright futures. So the consensus was, buy some more. And I did that. And eventually that $180,000, $190,000 just started dwindling down, dwindling down. I became more aggressive, and within a matter of months, it was gone, just like that. Now, I know traders can kind of relate. You don't have to lose that much money, but there's something that really sucks about having a whole bunch of money or having money and then watching it disappear. Now, that was my discretionary income. So I had that set aside. That was money I'd saved up since I was like a 20-year-old kid through my jobs. And it sucked and it really hurt because all this money I'd saved up, I was like in my mid-30s back then. All that money I'd saved up, 12, 15 years, was literally gone in a span of months. I had no more discretionary or disposable income. But I still felt that I had a chance to be a successful trader. And I still wanted to be a part of this. I still felt, okay, this market's going to come back. Things are going to be better. So what I did was I went back into my account and I took my emergency savings, which was about $28,000. And this was money that's just there for, if you got to make an emergency trip back home and you need an airline ticket, or you got to pay a bill or something comes up and you have emergency money set aside. I should have never touched that money in the first place, but I did anyway. But what was worse than that is I took that money and I put it right back into my account, and I bought the same piece of shit stocks that just took me out. It's like, dude, what are you doing? So, like the definition of insanity. You do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So that's exactly what I did. I went right back in, bought the same trash, and it just got worse and worse. And, 9/11 rolls around, the market gets halted. Of course, me losing money pales in comparison to what happened then. But once they open up the market, there it is. It's all gone, and I'm out of the trading business completely. I have no more money, none whatsoever. And in that, as a bystander, my motorcycle store dives. I have no more money to pay for it. I used up all of my spare money, and that was it. At this point, pissed off isn't even a good word. It's not even a good word. There's not enough words in the English language that they make to define how low and humiliating and disgusting you feel, just a failure as a human being. There's just nothing that explains just decimating yourself so quickly like that. So I didn't want to have anything to do with stocks, period. Didn't want to hear about stocks, didn't want to talk about stocks, wanted nothing whatsoever to do with them. But as they say, time heals all wounds. And as a couple of years would go by, the pain would wear off. And that human instinct, that grit and determination that we all have, that fire. And I just kept thinking, man, I don't want to be taken out I don't want to go down like this. This is not me. It's like Custer's last stand. I'm not going down like this. I'm going to rally. I'm coming back. But I didn't have any money. So, make a long story short again. My fiance, who I'm still with, has her last savings of like $22,000. And she says, if you're serious about trading and you take it seriously, I'll let you trade this money. But I want you to get educated. I want you to do better. I want you to take it serious. I want you to fix your problems first. So she gives me the money. I go right back into trading, and it didn't work out too well for the next year or so. I mean, I had a lot of bad months, but I started small. I started working on things step by step. Eventually, I would turn the corner with my trading, to make this long story short, and I would progress, and now I'm on my, I'd say, 12th to 13th year of making my living completely off of my trading. And yes, I paid her back tenfold for bailing me out, and we're still together. So what I wanted to focus on, and just like 6 years ago, I decided I wanted to share this story, and I had something to offer the trading world once I had established a great level of success. I started the LincolnList.com trading room. And of course, once I tell that story, it's always like everybody was, how did you do that? How did you stay with trading and not hate it? How did you overcome that? How did you get out of that hole, in that mess, sitting on a street corner, crying your eyes out, throwing up, to where you are today? What was that transition? Now, in the beginning, my answer was always, I worked hard. I was diligent. I kept studying. But that was a cop-out answer. That's not really what happened. So the more it was asked, the more I thought, well, yeah, what actually was it? What was the turning point? Because I think what a lot of traders are looking for is they're looking for an aha moment. Like this spot where something happens and it's one stock, one trade, one idea that completely turns everything around. That doesn't happen. There just isn't anything like that. At least not for me, and I think most successful traders will tell you the same thing. It's more of a process of doing little itsy-bitsy small things, and then it all turns into one big thing for you. But I started to interview a bunch of other traders who were successful, who had similar experiences, not losing two accounts, but people who had struggled for long periods of time. And I come up with 3 things that every one of these traders separated them from being an amateur, separated the pros from the amateurs, the pros from the Joes, or the pros from the Janes. What was that big separation? And those 3 things I placed right here on this board for you. And each one of these have some subcategories which we're going to talk about. The first one obviously is consistent. Now a lot of you might be thinking that consistency, a professional trader is just better with a higher win rate. Well, that's not necessarily the case. Professional traders are consistent in every aspect of their game. Everything from the way they wake up in the morning, from the way they approach the market, the way they research the market, the types of stocks they trade, the way they go about trading those stocks, their risk, every single minute detail about a professional has a higher level of consistency than the amateur. Less lapses of concentration, stronger actions of discipline, and we're going to talk about those and some steps you can put in your trading business starting tomorrow that will help you. The other one, of course, is emotions. We all know trading can be emotional, but a lot of people think emotions is just getting upset over a bad trade. Well, that's not just it. Trading is grueling mentally, and you're going to go through peaks and valleys where you're doing really, really well, and then you're not doing so well. It's what you do when you're not doing so well is what really separates the amateurs from the pros, how they survive through those times, how they're able to flourish in those times. As they always say, what's the saying, it's easy when you're the hammer, but what happens when you're the nail? How do you deal with being the nail? How do you survive through that? How do you regroup? And how do you keep yourself from being blown up like I was? And of course, last is a big one, is wipeout trades. Now, you're going to have bad trades. You can't trade and not have losers. You're going to have those. But what I'm talking about specifically when I say wipe out trades is, think of this. If you could go back into your brokerage account and you could remove 1 or 2 of your worst trades every month, like you got a mulligan on 2 trades, what would your results look like then? Right? What would those results look like? They would be dramatically different. I mean, incredibly and crazy different. So what we're going to try to do here is give you a few tips as well today on how to avoid taking a brutal loss. Because this is an ego killer, right? You're on a good roll, you've made a couple of bucks, you think you got this whole thing figured out, and then just like that, man, you know, you take a big hit and there goes weeks, months, maybe even a year of your good work. So we're going to talk about them. Now let's go ahead and get started, and we'll start out with the consistency part, talking about what you can do to be a little bit more consistent here. Now, the way I'm going to do this here when we talk about consistency is I want to do this via some slides. I think it'll be a little bit easier. So what I want to do when we talk about consistency is a quick mic check. Just make sure everybody can hear me because I'll put a headset mic on. Just give me a yes there if you guys can see the... All right. Okay, good. If you don't, we'll do whatever we can to get you back online. So as I said, where I want to start out here with is consistency. And this is what we're all striving for, is trying to have the most boring and mundane trading business that delivers us the best risk to reward. Now, I'm assuming at this point that everyone in here has some sort of trading process and some sort of trading plan already in place, something that helps you make a decision, push a button, and you already have that. If you don't, you're going to need that before anything else. Otherwise, you're just going to wake up every day and you're going to go round in circles chasing stuff. And you need something that actually helps you make a decision. Now, I don't want to go focus on a lot of strategies because this is not necessarily a strategies webinar. And one of the things that I've learned over all these years of trading stocks is that I've seen people make some of the most bizarre trading strategies work. But I do want to shed just a little bit of light on what you should have in place. And I would almost guarantee that just about 90% of you have some sort of strategy right now. If it's not working for you, or you're not doing that good, you're probably already sitting on a gold mine. You just don't know it. So we're going to talk about that here just real quickly. Your trading strategy that you have should have 3 things and serve 3 purposes. And the first thing is it should give you something, like we just said a second ago. It should help you identify an area of price somewhere on a chart where you're willing to say yes or no. There's something that says, I am a buyer, I am a seller. It's something that helps you pull that trigger and actually make a decision, because you have to get in the game to win it. The second thing your strategy should have and be able to do, which is very important, is a way that you control risk if this idea doesn't work out, which is really a big basis of everyone's trading. You know, you're trying to take as many ideas as you can, or the best ideas that you can, I should say, with the least amount of pain if you're wrong on that idea. And the last thing, I think a lot of people who are struggling are going to find this kind of weird, is that you don't have to be right all the time. In fact, you don't even have to be close whatsoever. All you need is something that gives you a 55% or better odds of winning on that trade. If you have this in place right now, you are already sitting on a strategy that can make you very, very successful in this business. If you have that and it's not working and you're just wondering, well, I do this, but I'm still losing money. Well, it's not your strategy's problem. It's going to come down to your execution of that strategy and the way you manage that strategy, which we'll talk about a little later on. This is all you need. And for some traders that I know that make a substantial amount, they do less. Some people lose less because their wins are so much larger than their average gains. So you don't need much. I know everybody's looking for that holy grail strategy where they don't have any losers. They don't even have any drawdowns. They just buy a stock and it goes straight up and they sell it. They make $1,500 every day in the first 30 minutes of trading. And then they just get in their Ferrari and drive down to Starbucks and blog post about it. But honestly, as you know from the whiteboard there, I've been in this game now for 18 years. I can tell you that does not exist. But back on point, if you have this right now, then you're on the right track to making money. You just need to make some tweaks to it. Now, the very first thing that I did, when we're talking about consistency, the very first thing that I did that just resembled anything of consistency, that started pointing me in the direction where I said, oh, you know what, I actually might be able to make this as a trader, was simplifying my trades and simplifying my process. And what this meant for me was I had to get this down to like a second or third grade level, and that was stretching it. So what I did was I took every strategy that I had learned over like 4 or 5 year span. And trust me, I was into everything. I was like a stock market junkie. I would study constantly. If there was a book or a DVD about a Fibonacci cycle, a floor pivot, an Elliott wave, I bought it. And I tried to use it. I tried everything. But I just scraped it down to only 2 strategies. Just 2. And that was all I was going to focus on. Now, what led me to pick the 2 that I did, which I'm still using today, was these were the only 2 strategies that I understood. That's the only reason I did. I understood them. I saw more of these types of opportunities, and that was the reason that made my decision. Now, when I got that down and I focused a little bit more on those 2 strategies, a few things would happen. One, I realized I had a whole lot more energy and focus rather than looking at 1,000 things. And this is something that newer and struggling traders are going to fall into this trap. I think we all do at least at one time. I had all this focus and energy, and it was just like tunnel vision on just 1 to 2 things. So I started seeing more of those opportunities. I was able to execute better with those opportunities, thus make a lot more money. So this is something that each and every one of you should do. If you're not being consistent right now, you need to get that down to about 1 to 2 strategies. Make the game a little bit easier for yourself. That way it's not so fast. And of course, there's other things that happen here. You won't miss trades and all that good stuff. Now, the second thing that I did was once I started making these trades, I realized that not all of these trades were created equal. Like a flag breakout on Amazon or Momo trade on Netflix is going to be much different and have a far different result than a breakout trade on dry ships. If you short Tesla while it's running up to high a day, it's going to have a whole different outcome and emotional feeling to it than if you try to short something like a KBIO, because every stock is different in the way that it behaves. Because people trade stocks, people themselves are emotional beings, and their emotions reflect these stocks. I'm sure you guys have already figured that out if you've traded for any length of time. It's almost like these things can talk to you. They have their own behavior. And that's what you're trying to do when you're reducing the amount of trades that you're taking. It's again, taking all of that focus and putting it right there where it needs to be. And you'll see these little nuances in these trades. But these stocks have different players. They have different volumes. It's an entirely different game. So what you have to be able to do is quickly, since time is of the essence, especially if you're a day trader, What you have to be able to do is quickly diagnose the level of opportunity that's in front of you. You have to be able to do that and do that quickly. So what I do is just something simple. It doesn't even have to be fancy. I rank all of my trades in tier, like a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. You can do an A, B, and C, super duper, and then a pooper, however you want to do this, but you need to distinguish the level, and I'll tell you why. So for me, a tier 1 is a trade that yields a very great opportunity. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to win on it, but my probability, which is what we do as traders, we trade probabilities. My probability on a tier 1 is going to be about 70 to 75% win rate. Now, I won't see all of these. I won't get 25 of these every day. Maybe I'll see one, or maybe it'll be a couple of days before I really get a top tier grade A quality opportunity. Now, why this becomes important is because you want to be able, as the trader, if you're in this for money, which I'm sure you are, you want to be able to put max risk and max size on the table when it comes to grade A tier 1 plays. You want to put your money on the table where it's going to serve you best. Now, you don't even, if you're new, you don't even have to mess around with tier 2 or tier 3s, but I know some of you are junkies. You got to make a trade. You feel compelled to push that button and get in on that action. And it's okay to do that sometimes. It's okay to get involved in some speculation, but make sure you rank that. So, for example, maybe I'll do a tier 1, it'll be a 500 shares, but if a tier 2, maybe my ratio on this is going to be 55% or 50. It's kind of low. I don't want to put max size on that opportunity. Same thing with the tier 1. You go lower there, that's just a dart throw. And basically, you don't really need to put any money on that whatsoever. And for most of you, you don't even need to go down that far. Just focus on the premium hands and the quality, because trading isn't about the quantity of the opportunities. It's about the quality and how you distinguish that quality of those opportunities. Now, I know all of you have heard about revenge trading before, which really never works for any of us. It's like a 99% win-lose rate on something like a revenge trade. But this is a classic revenge trade setup. Is you start out with a tier 1, or you have a game plan and maybe perhaps you miss that tier 1, your dynamite opportunity, or you take a loss on that tier 1, and then that anger and that human emotion to tell you, man, I got to get back in the market and make my money back, and I got to do it now. I don't want to wait till tomorrow. I want it now. And then you start looking at tier 2s and 3s, and they're like trader goggles. They're not as hot as tier 1s, but you're confusing them for tier 1s, or they're not that good, but you double down or you triple down on junkier opportunity. So make sure you rank those, and you want to put that good size on top of the good opportunities. Now, the other thing that I did as well was I started trading the right stocks at the right times of the day. Now, when I say the right stocks, there are so many of them out there. And something like an Apple, for example, it's not a tradable vehicle for a day trader every day of the week. There's certain stocks that are under momentum. There are certain stocks that are going through accumulation and distribution. And there are stocks that are hot now. So names that are hot now will probably be cold next week, or maybe next month, or a couple of months down the road, and a whole new cycle of names will come in. I also mean by trading the right stocks is if you have any market technicians out there that do a lot of technical analysis, and as we just mentioned about behaviors with stocks, you can see a chart, and if you were trading for 5 minutes, you can see that some intraday charts look a lot cleaner, a lot tighter, a lot smoother than some other ones. For example, like an NVIDIA, if anybody wants to pull up that chart right now, pretty wacky movement intraday out of that. Now, what does that mean to you, the trader? Well, there are no style points in trading. You don't want to stress yourself out trying to figure out where this animal might go when there's something else out there that's the least path of resistance, something that's a lot smoother, something that moves in a more predictable fashion. Again, we're not trying to be heroes. We're trying to make this as easy as we possibly can, because trading's hard enough as it is. So that's what I mean by the right type of stocks. And when I say the right time, I mean the time of day. You'll figure out throughout your trading career that most of the money that you make is going to be done within the first 2 hours of the day. That doesn't mean that you guys aren't going to find any opportunities after that. Like, there's never going to be anything after that. But for the most part, that's where that action is going to be. Again, we're trying to tie all this together, and why this is really important for you is because if you're aware of this, we talked about focus when it came to simplifying your process. This means that in the first 2 hours a day, you should have absolutely no distractions whatsoever. No YouTube, no Facebook, no phone calls. Everyone around me knows, do not bother me for 2 hours. I'll tell jokes, I'll sing songs and karaoke later, but for the first 2 hours, it's all business because I want max focus on this time frame. It also keeps your productivity higher because you cannot keep a high mental state of focus and concentration for all 6.5 hours the market's open every single day, 5 days a week for years upon years. You're going to fry your brain like that. As I said, there are stuff that works good in the evening, like the last hour. But for the most part, your money will be made within that time. So it's important for you, the trader, to focus on that time frame and do the very best job that you can performing in that segment. And the last thing that I did here is under no circumstances, guys, ever, never, ever, ever, nevers, ever, ever, never, never, ever, ever look at your P&L during your trading session. I know it's a hard thing to do because you're in the business to make some money. But please don't do this, and I'll tell you why. Because at some point, you're going to allow that number that you see on your screen to talk you out of an opportunity or cause you to screw up a certain opportunity. So for example, we've all been in a kind of trade. Let's say we buy a stock and it didn't do what we wanted. We've been kind of underwater for 30, 40 minutes. That's a long time for a day trader, by the way. So you're underwater and it keeps bouncing. It kind of gets you in the green and it goes red. Kind of gets you in the green. So emotionally, you start getting really pissed about this stock. You're mad, you're frustrated. And then finally, about an hour later, 2 hours later than you wanted to, the stock starts breaking out. But you're so mad and you waited so long that as soon as it gets green, you sell it for like 20-cent profit or 10-cent profit. You come back an hour later and the thing's up $3 more. You know? If you look at that P&L, it causes that. Where it becomes worse is if you look up and you see that glorious red number on a trade. Like you hit the button and all of a sudden it starts getting a bunch of numbers on there that's red. The first instinct you have when you see that red is, I made a mistake. I screwed up. And then maybe that number starts to get a little uncomfortable in size. It starts to get too big. And you get frustrated and then you cut it because you're scared. And then again, another couple hours, it's like, I would have been back to break even. Or I could have made some really good money on this trade. One thing that we always say in our trade room is this. And if you have a second, I want you guys to write it down because it's like one of the greatest stock market sayings of all time. I use it redundantly. And that is, trading isn't about making money. It's about making good trades. Don't ever think about money. Don't worry about money. Just look at the chart. Remember your reasonings for entering this trade. Execute, and I swear to you, the P&L will take care of itself. It will be there. If you have the discipline and you have that focus and you do what you know you're supposed to do, you don't need to look at your P&L. It'll be there at the end of the day, every day of the week. So keep those in mind. Those are just a few basic things right there that will help you with consistency. Now, there's a couple of more in there, but I think if you guys are struggling right now, trying to build a consistent business, trying to take the drama out of your trading business, something where you're a little bit, you feel like you can rely more on your trading, these are a few steps that you can take right now and start using tomorrow, one at a time. Now, also, we're going to talk about emotions today. I'm not a psychologist, not by any means, but I've certainly had my emotional moments. I'm sure you guys have had too. And this is one of the reasons why I don't pay attention to too many strategies. You do what you do, but you got a lot of people pitching you a strategy like it's a holy grail. Like, you learn my system, it's going to be rich. We all know, let's just be honest with one another. Trading's all about emotions. It's all psychological. It's all a head game and a mind game, because we figured out that most of the time we're right. We know what the market's going to do. We know what a stock is going to do most of the time, but it's our emotions, our psychology, or our piss poor execution that keeps us from capitalizing on it, right? So we've got to be able to get these under control. And like I said there on the whiteboard, emotions just isn't about losing money. It also has to do with emotional grind and the mental grind of trading. But let's address the elephant in the room. One big thing I've seen over the years, and I was definitely in this position, is that a bad trade does not make you a bad trader. And it's very hard not to take this personal when you lose. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, you've put in all this work. You've studied relentlessly. You've worked so hard. You've waited for this opportunity forever, and it doesn't work. And that's just like a buzzkill. That's a buzzkill. Plus, trading has something that a lot of careers just don't have. You immediately see the ramifications of your decision instantly. Like, for example, if you work a 9 to 5 or somebody who gets a steady paycheck every week, a salary, if you go to work and you screw up, you might get bitched out by the boss, right? Maybe your coworkers will hate you, but you're still going to get your check on Friday. You're still getting paid. When you screw up as a trader, not only do you not get paid, but you end up losing money for it. And there's only so much a person can do, but when that happens, when you go through bad streaks and you try to start forcing things to make it happen, this is what wears on the brain, and you start feeling inadequate. Like, oh man, I can't do it. But you guys have to remember, a bad trade doesn't make you a bad trader. And it's also, like I've said before, mistakes are awesome as long as you don't repeat them. Each day that you make a mistake or you make a bad trade, use that as a learning opportunity. Figure out where it went wrong. When you know you're doing something right is at the end of the day when you look back at the trade and you lost, and you would tell yourself, if I saw that 10 more times, I would take it again. If I seen it again, I would do it again. Not because it was a winner or a loser, because it was exactly what you were looking for. Just didn't happen to work out. As I said before, I usually don't lose money unless I do something dumb, unless I start deviating away from plan, trying to make something happen, forcing the issue. So a bad trade doesn't make you guys a bad trader. Another area, which I've already kind of touched on a few times, that starts this whole emotional downfall is execution. And I kind of touched on that already. You can have the greatest game plan in the world, the greatest strategy in the world, but if you can't execute this strategy, if you can't do it when the time is right and perform, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And why it's an emotional thing is because if you have a lack of execution, then that's what leads to taking the revenge trades, tier 2s and 3s. That's what leads to the frustration of blowing out a good game plan. And I've been in this, and I still do it today. The only thing difference between pro traders and amateurs is they just make mistakes less. They learn what not to do earlier than the amateur. But we still slip up and do this. And it's angering and frustrating when you thought all night, hey, this is the best trade I'm going to see all month. You dream about it, you get up next day, it hits your target, and you freeze for just that one split second. And there it goes. It left without you. Maybe you chase it. Maybe it wasn't even your fault. Maybe it was your broker's fault for not getting your order filled, or it was your computer slacking, freezing up on you or something. So execution is something that you have to focus on as well And if you do that in the beginning, it'll eliminate a lot of these emotional problems that you might have. And the last thing that I want to touch about on emotions is everybody should have some sort of like, I've had enough moment. Sometimes you just got to leave, man. You just got to get up and walk away. You just got to go. And that never goes away. As I said, the difference between pros and amateurs is there'll be less of them, but they're still going to be there. And there's days that I'll get up after 18 years and it's like 20 minutes into the trading session, it's like, I've never traded before, have I? What the hell am I doing? What are you doing? And you just start, if you stick around and then you try to fix that day. Sometimes you guys ever been in that situation, you try to fix that day and it got a lot worse. And it got a lot worse quickly. And then you thought about, geez, when I was ready to leave, I should have left. Should have did what I said I was going to do. But sometimes you just have to walk away. And it doesn't necessarily have to be for the whole day. Sometimes you just need to walk around the block a little bit, take a hike, do something, but get your eyes off of the screen, reset the brain, and then try to come back a little bit later with fresh eyes. Don't force anything, and see if you can just kind of get back on track. If not, just call it a day. The market, one good thing about trading, which is a big appeal to me when I first started, and probably to you guys as well, is the market's going to be open forever. It'll give you a rematch. If you screwed up today, guess what? Market's open tomorrow. You screw up tomorrow, it's going to be open Friday too, and next week. Outside of a few holidays, it's going to be open a lot. So you're always going to have a chance to get your revenge and come back, but do so in a better frame of mind with a better game plan. The other segment that we'll talk about, as we put on the whiteboard, is let's talk about the bad trade. We're all going to get this one. Let's just get it out of the way right now, the evil bad trade. And like I said as well in the whiteboard, I'm talking about losers. Everybody's going to have losers. But talking about that wipeout trade, right? You guys know what I mean. We all get those that damages you so badly that you're just crushed. The reason for that is because the money you make, it's not really the money you lose, I should say. That's so damaging. It's how much your ability is to make money. So for example, if you only have $50 on your average win, then, if you lose $300, you can do the math. That's quite a few trades you're going to have to make up, right? You have to do 6 winners just to cover that mess up. So you can't let it be that high. But something that I have here on the screen, which could have easily been in the consistency section and probably should be much higher than where it is right now, is everything that you ever do can be controlled and practically solved in the world of trading through proper position size. If you take too much position size on a trade, what is the first thing that happens? Anxiety. And if you go look at that P&L, it starts to look a lot bigger and larger and grandioso than it ever did before. And that'll lead to you making severe mistakes. If you can't figure out how to trade because your entries are so horrifying, you're like the worst trade stock enterer on the planet. How do you control that? Position size. You don't want to get shaken out on a trade and accidentally stop. How do you do that? Position size. It's so important that you could have a dry ships, right? You could have a dry ships. You could have shorted it at $4 and watched it go to 100 if you had 5 shares, right? You could be that moronic about trading and that naive and not blow up, right? That's like, oh, you'll sting a little bit. You didn't lose your account. But now if you do 10,000 shares, you got a serious problem. You don't have an account. You're going to be ready to get tapped out around the $30 level or a squeeze like that. So remember, if you get stopped out a lot, you struggle with that. How do you fix it? Give yourself more room via position size. A little unsure of the opportunity, want to be a little less conservative. How do you control that? Position size. It's like the throttle on your vehicle. It can go 100 miles an hour or 20. How do you want to use it? Remember, position size is a big deal. Another thing that helped me eliminate bad trades was time. And surprisingly, I don't see many traders talk about this. I once did a video on it not too long ago. Time stops. Now, what I mean by time, this is different than the time of day. When you enter a trade, you know about on average how long it takes for this trade to work. 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, based on your strategy over time. After you've been doing it for a little while, you're like, you buy a breakout. If you buy in breakouts, they need to go now. That's what, if it goes over a high a day and on a breakout on a perfect flag setup, double top, something out of a magazine drawing, if it goes, it's got to go. It can't just sit there. There's a certain time. If your trade doesn't work out within a certain time frame, you got to let it go. Now, some are going to fool you. But again, like we said, it's not about making money. It's about making good trades. You're really not trading to make money. You're just trading not to blow up, not to get killed on a trade. Because here's what you don't know. Regardless of how good the setup and how sexy it might be, you don't know if this thing's going to work or not. You don't. I mean, you might go right into the most beautiful breakout, right? Like AAOI, the sexiest stock in the world right now, running up every single day. You buy it, and all of a sudden it gets halted. I mean, this is stock market trading. Even though the VIX is like at historical lows, and this is the most peaceful market of all time, stuff still gets halted. It could still happen. There's still that element of risk, and that's what you're trying to stop, is having that one huge hit completely wipe you guys out. You can't have it. Now, you have to train yourself sometimes to get back in these trades, but that's what you need to do, is you have a certain time frame that you expect. Now, I actually learned this a lot about 6 years ago when I first started. A client actually did this. I'm not this smart, some sort of mathematical statistic thing on my trading results. And it was so bad that if anything that went past 1 hour, my trades, 1 hour, my ratio went from 70 to 75% wins down to 20. So that meant if I was still in that trade after an hour, that's how much percentage of win I lost out on. That's how much my stats went down. I mean, that's an eye-opener. Maybe you don't realize it, but that's huge. It's like you don't have any business in it. Your chances of making that trade work is so small. And the last thing here that I want to talk about, we've already talked about revenge trades, so I'm just going to kind of move on. When all else fails, every one of you need a GTFO button, and that's a get the F out button. That's when you hit a certain limit, you just got to eject. And this is the only exclusion I will allow anyone to say, okay, I'm not looking at the chart anymore. This is where I'm actually looking at the money. Because by this time, technical analysis has long gone out the window. The reasons for your trade has long gone out the window. You're just smoking the hopium, living on a prayer. You got no chance here, and you got to bail before this thing turns into more of a nightmare than it already is. Now, a lot of traders will ask, what should it be? What should this number be? And I think if you're a new trader, you need to keep this at around 5 to 6 trades, average winners. That's your max loss. And that's probably stretching it. You might even want to be down at 3 or 4. But again, for example, to make math easier, if your average win is $50, 5 times that is $250 to $300. So $250 to $300 is your max loss that you should take. Now that doesn't mean as soon as it hits 250 you hit your GTFO. It just means that when you get in that area, you really need to consider cutting it. It's going to have to start working in your favor immediately, or you have to let it go. If it starts coming back later in the day, back to your area, then maybe try it again. But you can't let that turn into $600, because if it turns into $600, then that's 12 winning trades you're going to need to make up for it. If you let it go for days and it turns into $1,200 or $1,500, then you're looking at 20 to 30 trades of winners that you're going to need to make that back. You can't do that. Plus, it's going to suck if you actually do make it back, because you're going to say, geez, I could have kept all these 30 winners if I would have cut that piece of crap out of my portfolio a lot earlier. Remember, that's all we're doing here, guys. We're just trying not to get smoked. That's it. That's our job. Just don't go off the deep end. That's it. So quickly, a recap here. What did we talk about? Stuff that was on the whiteboard there. Consistency. This is where it all starts. You want to be consistent. You got to start managing your business a lot better. You got to simplify your process, rank the level of opportunity that's in front of you, trade the right types of stocks at the right times. Do not try to be a hero, and don't look at your P&L. When it comes to emotions, losing is part of the game. You can't take that personal. It's not personal whether you lose. Execution is a big piece of this game. And sometimes you got to just leave. You can't just sit there all day and trade. And of course, we just talked about avoiding massive loss. And to me, this is the center of all what we're trying to do. As long as you can avoid loss, big loss, even if you're new and you're struggling, the best benefit of this is survival. With the right position sizes, the right game plan, you can survive. You can hang in there. And that's how I felt early in my career, was if I could just stick it out as long as I possibly can, extend this nightmare, eventually I'll figure it out, right? So even if the slowest person in the world, if you just stick in the game for a few years, anybody can be successful at trading. For some people, it'll be a lot faster than others, but that's sometimes what you have to do. It's all about, in the beginning, if you're struggling and you're new, it's about surviving. And these tips that we talk about today is what helps you survive and stay in the game, live to fight another day, and you never know. All it takes is a little bit of momentum, a couple of great trades, and it unlocks this whole new vision. And it could be, the next trade that sends you on a long winning streak, that turns your career around. It could be right, it could be the next trade. So you just got to keep plugging away at it. Now, what I'd like to do for everybody here is, I think I mentioned something about a little special offer for everyone here in the room. I mentioned I had a trading room. I'm not going to sit here and focus on it a bunch. But if you want to see it every day, we trade live. It's very similar to what you're seeing right now in a webinar format. My brokerage account's on the screen. My charts are on the screen. Everything there. We got a great community of experienced traders and just people that get along. No egos, no garbage. It's not a huge, overly large room. But if you guys are looking for something like that, you want to build a better business, anybody that's at the webinar, I'll give you a 1-week free trial. No credit card accepted. You start trading with us tomorrow. That's all you have to do. If you can't use the link that's posted, I think there's an offer link or something that's posted, then just send me an email right there at support@thelincolnlist.com. Put trial in the subject line, and I'll get you all set up tonight and be ready tomorrow. So I want to thank everybody for showing up. I hope you learned something. And I'd also like to give a nice quick shout out to Trade Ideas for co-promoting this webinar for us. And what I'll do is I'll stick around for a little bit and answer any questions if you guys have them. Just go ahead and type them in. Something you wanted to talk about, some area you wanted to discuss. Give it a few minutes here. If you leave, I want to thank you for attending. If you missed some of it, well, it's on my mind. Everybody will get a link to this webinar, and you can replay it as much as you want and listen to it as often as you like. So if you leave, thanks for coming by. Take care. And I'll be sitting here for a few minutes if you guys have any questions. Thank you. Tyler, I don't trade. Well, I trade a little bit of futures. I don't trade. That's about it. Just E-mini and the NQ. Everything else I suck at, so I don't like to do things I suck at. If I didn't get to your question, then just again, you guys can send me an email at any time if you have a question about trading stocks or something like that. Somebody asked, how many stocks do I look at today? Again, I try to keep that simple too. I try to focus on just maybe five to 10 stocks tops. And of course, when the market opens, a lot of that changes. You narrow that down to one or two that you really want to focus on that you think have the best opportunity to make you some money. And that's been the theme of this whole webinar is focus. You want to try to limit the amount of work your brain has to do. Because over time, it's just going to get cooked. And you can only do so much. So it's like becoming a master of just one thing. Thank you, Pirate. I use both, Steve. I have like a mental stop. I don't use a physical stop. The reason for that is the market's just wacky. There's so much introduction of algos and algorithmic trading and computer trading. It's just hard to just say, I'm right here. Now, some people make that work, but for me, it doesn't. So I give myself a little extra room, and then it does change. Sometimes the pattern changes. The stock behaves differently. And maybe if it's like a breakout, it kind of stopped and then it curled back up, and it's like, oh, this move's going to be bigger, or it's moving into another area. I mean, things change all the time. Well, my pre-market routine is I like to look at the highs, lows of the day and try to get a good feel for what sectors or what stocks might be on tap. And then I kind of look down for some sympathy plays. Like a simple explanation would be like a Facebook. You get Facebook ripping, and you're probably going to get other kind of tech names, or it's going to be a strong day for tech. You might want to look for some sympathy, like AAOI. You might look down to Lite, LITE. And then, you just kind of work from there. And you get a feel. Like right now, a lot of trading, of course, comes from repetition. And you just kind of get a feel for what's going to happen. Like right now, I guess especially the last couple of weeks, it's just a buy the dip market. And that's all there is to it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out. You don't have to overthink trading. That's what I always try to say. So you don't overthink it. So it's funny because I see a lot of people bragging about strategies, like breakout strategies working. These breakout strategies, of course they're working, because the market goes up 0.5% every damn day.
It's on a 12, 13-day flyer. Of course it does. So knowing this, it's like, look, I love shorting stocks. That's what I do. I love it. And my room loves it. But, we have to taper off because it's like, now's not the time to try to stick that in there. The strategy that you have changes a little. So it's like, I got to be a little bit more cautious. How do I be more cautious? Lower position size, less opportunity, more particular about the opportunities that I get myself involved on. Writing some stocks just completely off the list. Like an AOI. No, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to cross paths with that. It's too much cult. There's too many bag holders. There's just too much there for you to try to wrestle it. And that's what you do as a trader. You're just not trying to be a hero, So now I kind of look for strong stocks with pullbacks, Give me a flush on Tesla. Give me a flush on AOI or something like that. You dump early, then I'm interested in buying it. So sometimes you have to make those adjustments to your trades and your trading plan to compensate, because the market over time will really change a lot. Like when I first started, we traded in fractions, so we've come a long way. I use trade ideas. You are very welcome. Yeah, for most of the day. I started at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's my time. Southern California. I meant to say Pacific time. I'm crisp around the head right now. Be 8 o'clock Eastern time. And then we have like a little pre-market warm up at 6, about half an hour before the market opens. So everybody can get ready and narrow our opportunities down, and then try to focus really, really hard on those first 2 hours. We stick around all day. I stick around the entire day, still looking. So most of the days it's a waste of time, but you never know. I mean, that's why we sit there all day behind the computers. We're waiting. Maybe something will creep up. You just got to, it's kind of what you do as a trader. What's the hard part is the patience. You got to sit there and wait and wait. That's what's interesting. Like people talk about goals. It's like you can't set a financial goal. Like I'm going to make $500 today. You can't do that, because maybe the market's going to really suck that day and there's just no opportunity. You're kind of a victim. You're like held hostage, prisoner to it. Yeah, Dennis, I have a swing trading service too, part-time trader program. No, you don't. Sometimes they'll, like I said, most of the action is that first 2 hours, but sometimes, of course, we had Fed day today, so sometimes you get something, you get something. Thank you. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off. Again, I want to thank you. If you forgot to ask me something, support at thelincolnlist.com anytime. Don't have to be a member to ask me a question. I'll do what I can to help you out. Get some trading questions, things you need some help with. Feel free to reach out to me. If you want to take advantage of the trial, don't forget. It's a whole week. Actually, it'd be more than a week if you respond to it today. But you get to trade with us, see what we're all about, see if we're a good fit for you. And we can help you get to that next level as a trader. So thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it. Take care. Hope we all talk again soon.